an article titled Tattoo Ink Induces Inflammation in the Draining Lymph Node and Alters the Immune Response to Vaccination. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I'm just going to read their little significance bar, not even the abstract, but their significance bar on the right here. Before I do, I'll say this is work done in mice. So they haven't done the work in humans, but they cite in their introduction all sorts of previous work that has been done that has already established that tattoo ink stays in the body, is responded to by lymph nodes, and is tattoo inks are not even as regulated as food dyes and other food additives. The FDA has nothing to say, apparently, about tattoo inks. So the significance, again, this is all I'll really share from the study directly. In this study, we characterized the immune responses to the tattoo ink accumulating in the lymph nodes. This is very relevant as tattoo ink commonly reaches and persists in this organ in most tattooed subjects, often lifelong. Again, that is a claim from previous research that is long established. We, the authors of the current study, have observed that ink is retained within phagocytic cells, which undergo cell death and induce a prominent and long-term inflammatory response, with elevated levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines in lymph nodes up to 2 months after tattooing. Furthermore, we observed that tattoo ink at the vaccine injection site modulated immune responses in a vaccine-specific manner, with a reduced response to the COVID-19 vaccine and an enhanced response to the UV inactivated influenza vaccine, reflecting differences in the mechanisms of action between these vaccine classes. They have no explanation for that, for what they see as vaccine injection site modulated immune responses in a vaccine-specific manner. But they find it. They see this in mice, and they see the lymph nodes being active for months unto years after tattooing, which, I just wanted to bring this to our attention as yet another thing that has become commonplace, that is accepted among many Americans as a normal thing that many young people mostly do. It was becoming very popular when we were young. I remember, neither of us is tattooed, and I remember noting that it had become something that was almost an expectation after some nights out, and in some sort of party contexts, and thinking at the time, how could you be so certain that what you think you want displayed on your body today is what you will want in 10, 20, 50 years? How can you be so certain that it will look the same? Which it won't. And also thinking at the time as a young person, how could that possibly be safe?
Yeah.
How could that possibly be safe?
No, it's an absurdity that it would be. It's interesting. I wonder if Maha shouldn't take it up. In other words,
I don't know that Maha needs more enemies.
I think it could use a breather where it gets to, I can't imagine the tattoo industry is
no, but there are a lot of people, and I think basically from Gen X through, I think there's a decline now, and that's just my sense of things. I haven't seen any numbers, but I feel like Gen X and millennials are heavily tattooed generations, and just like people who had gotten the COVID jabs and don't think that they have any ill effects are very unwilling to look at the reality that they were neither safe nor effective, because they did it and especially if they got their kids jabbed. They're just unwilling to look at it because what are they going to do now? And so I think the same thing will be some of what the response will be among the many millions of people who are tatted.
Still, though, I think the point is America is unhealthy.
Yes,
it's unhealthy for a substantial number of different kinds of reasons. Here's one. Likewise, vaping, right?
Yeah.
Here's another one. Food additives, including seed oils. Yeah. So the point is, I think the beauty of Maha is that it has been politicized by others, but it is apolitical, right? The whole point is this is about healthy people.
Yeah.
And that should be something we all favor. And that means that whatever it is that's making them unhealthy, whether it's sedentary lifestyles or bulbs that have unhealthy spectra of light.
Light bulbs.
Yes, no, not
Crocus? What? Camas? Death camas. Yeah.
Don't eat.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think my feeling is it's a question of return on investment, and obviously Maha should prioritize things in order of the bang for the buck. And I don't know how big a contributor tattoos are to ill health in Americans. Maybe it's not high enough to justify it being a priority, but given the number of tattoos and it's at least, here's where the value is. It's at least something that everybody should be aware of in deciding whether or not to get a tattoo.
Exactly. I guess I'd like to just finish this segment by offering an apology to the frogs that I tattooed in Madagascar in my final field season, having tried many ways to mark them so that I could tell individuals apart and thus decipher what it was they were doing and how they were competing and holding territories and caring for their children and all the things that most frogs do not do, but my frogs, Mantella levigata, in Madagascar did. So it was in my final field season that I arrived at the route that best suited my needs and may not have best suited the needs of the frogs, which was that I tattooed them in unique alphanumeric identifiers on their backs. Frogs are not humans. You may have noticed one of the many ways that they differ from humans is that to our 3 layers of skin, they only have 2. So I had to be more careful. And frogs have an ability that is at least better known and better established than anything that humans can do to eject things from their bodies. And so they did actually lose their tattoos. They de-inked themselves over the course of the field season. So I hope that means that they're, those frogs are long since dead, but that I did not shorten their lives with the inks that I was using in a tattoo gun purchased from some nice bikers who were in the business of tattooing the toes of penguins at SeaWorld, if memory serves.
Really?
Yes.
The toes of penguins at SeaWorld,
yes.
Naturally or unnaturally.
Yeah, but that's, why else would there be a portable tattoo gun that I was able to take to Madagascar? Because when you go to SeaWorld, you don't take the penguins to a tattoo parlor. You take the tattoo gun to SeaWorld.
Yeah, that's an interesting image, bringing a penguin to a tattoo parlor.
Yes. And that, again, it was not because the penguins wanted to, display their love for mom. It was to identify them individually.
Yes.
This is the story I was told, again, by the dudes on the phone, where I could hear the Harleys revving in the background, from which I procured my tattoo gun.
Now, in the case of your frogs, if they were going to display their love for a parent, it's a little hard to say which one it would be.
Could be both. Yeah. I mean, both mom and dad, they do different jobs, as is always the case. But both seem necessary to the success of the beautiful little frog eggs that become beautiful little frog tadpoles and then metamorphose into, frankly, the only beautiful thing of the lot, the frogs themselves, because the eggs and the tadpoles aren't really beautiful.
No. There's never been a beautiful tadpole.
No, but the frogs are beautiful.
They are.